We are back in the fish room, and now there's actually some occupants in here as well. So this was just a quick video of me putting Agatha in her little tub. So I don't know whether it's the done thing or not, but I tend to put her on land first when I move her into a new environment. My logic is it makes it so that she knows where she can get out and where she can come up to bask and where she can come up to breathe. But to be honest, I think she'd probably work it out. I hadn't moved her in a while though, so she was a little bit shell-shocked. Pardon the pun. But normally, once she sort of realises that she's safe and that she's alright, she'll normally acclimate and chill really quickly. In fact, out of all my reptiles and all of my fish, she probably takes things in her stride very easily. I also did a nice display for Steve. Steve is a Channa punctata. He's wild caught and he doesn't like people. He doesn't like anything. He doesn't play nice with other fish. Other fish tend to bully him as well as him bullying other fish. And he's also not alright with Agatha. He used to live with Agatha and then he started chasing her around and batting her about the tank like a hockey puck a couple of years ago. So he lives on his own now. But it's quite a nice tank. I quite like it. So we got the rack in this week and it kind of just looked a little bit shabby once I got it in. Now I'd obviously put this tape on here to cover the water line and to sort of tie it all together. And I then decided that it would be a really good idea for me to take all of the tape off. But it was on there. So what you can see here is me just using my wet dry vacuum and some wire wool, some steel wool to get the glass all nice and get them all cleaned up. And then it was time for me to start thinking about getting all of this tape off. So it wouldn't come off by itself, so I got the old WD-40 out. And honestly, this was one of those tasks where I really wish I hadn't started it, because once I'd started, obviously, I had to get all of the tape off. This took me hours. I'm not even joking. This took me absolutely hours to get all of this tape off. And then, of course, I had to do it with the other lot as well. So that was the 3-foot rack, and this is the 4-foot of the step racks. And luckily, some of it came off a little bit easier. You can see it's left some sticky behind. So I guess my top tip is don't ever put sellotape or sticky tape or painter's tape or frog tape or any of that on your aquarium. I'm not joking. This took me absolutely hours. But once it was done, it did look a lot smarter, and I'm pleased I did it. I really just had to like leave the WD-40 on there and let it soak, really let it penetrate into the sticky, and then I had to use a razor blade and just scrape it all off. Just had to get all of the sticky off, layers and layers. But as you can see, once it was done, it looked really smart, and I was really pleased with how all of this went. And I just popped some pebbles in just to see what that would look like. Okay, we are up to 22 degrees in here. So since adding the wool insulation, that has gone up by 4 degrees in here. We did add another heater as well, just to give it a little bit more whoop. I'm not convinced the third heater's really done much, but as soon as we finished popping the insulation in there, could immediately see that this little thermometer was climbing. So yeah, what I think I need to do, now I did this last night, but I've popped some insulation in front of that window, and I've done it with that one as well. I think the next problem that I have with keeping the heat in this place is that these are only single pane windows. They are glass, which is nice. It's not like plastic, so you can see through them quite nicely. But that one is causing problems with reflections, and I think I'm losing a lot of heat out of them because actually noticeably overnight, it's definitely got a lot warmer in here after covering up the windows. So now curtains, I need it to warm up in here because I want to get fish in, and it's got to be at least 27, 28 degrees in here before I can get fish in here, because I need the water in those tanks warm enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop a couple of heaters in those tanks, just alternating, because they normally warm the one up next to them as well. So I've got a couple of, I think they're 50 watts, one of them might be 100, to pop in those tanks around the corner there. And then I have a hammer and nails, just to, because I don't have any curtain rails, but I have a hammer and nails, and I'm going to quickly jump up and pop some curtains up. I think that is probably going to make quite a difference in here, having the windows covered, and then the roof will be insulated. And then the only other thing that I don't have in the fish room, which I have in the other fish room at the moment, is there's a big curtain over the door. But I mean, that door is quite solid, and it seals quite nicely as well. So I don't think I'm gonna need it. But yeah, I'm gonna jump up and pop those curtains up. And then there is one of the air pumps out of the old fish room that was powering this rack. So I have some of the little metal valve thingies on the way today. They should be arriving today, hopefully. Get them off Amazon. They're about £5 for a pack of 6. So I've got 2 packs of 6 coming. And then I just need some hose, because basically what you do is hook a garden hose size up onto that, create a loop system of the garden hose, which the air goes through. So the garden hose will be like as a frame, like going around here and then up into the air pump, which is going to be up on the shelf up here. And then basically what you do is you drill into it and then slot in your little metal valve thingies, and then you can turn those on and off, and that's what you attach your airline to. So it's going to be a lot neater than what I had for this system. But I've already got one pre-made on the other system that's probably going to need a couple of tweaks. So I can show you that as well. So we'll have 2 different examples. But the tanks have held, even though there was scary creaky noises while I was filling everything up. The tanks have held. There doesn't appear to be any drips. Not really too concerned about slow leaks, to be honest, because I can normally sort those out, or they just normally don't happen enough to bother me if there's a slow leak. But I think this looks quite smart. Completely unintentional, having the alternating pattern with the light blue, dark blue, dark blue, light blue. But that's just sort of happened, and I think it looks quite cool. I was actually planning on having them just as 2 rows with the 2 different colours. I was planning on having the blue on the bottom so that it hid the metal frame. But actually I don't really mind it too much. So once these are warmed up and the air is all hooked up and ready to go, then basically it's going to be moving 1 tank of fish with the filters in that tank. So most tanks have got like 3 different tanks worth of fish in them and 3 different filters. So moving those 3 filters, sort of like 1, 2, 3, and then moving the fish in, so they instantly cycle because those filters are running. And then it's not messing the biosecurity up as well, because the fish go with the filter, if that makes sense. And basically just doing it bit by bit, gradually. But everything has to be warm enough at the moment. I don't know whether you can make it out on there. It's very, very faint. I think that thing's running out of battery, but that says that the tanks are currently about 17, 18 degrees, which is the minimum temperature for most of the fish I've got. So it's not quite warm enough. It needs to come up by about 4 degrees, I would say, minimum. Luckily, we're due for quite warm weather this week as well, which I think is going to help. But yeah, basically my challenge now is getting it nice and warm in here, and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, so I've got some heaters in the tanks, which are hopefully going to work. Those top 2 might be a little bit chilly, but heat rises, so hopefully those top tanks won't need it as much as the bottom tanks. I haven't actually checked the thermometer. I'm going to close the door and like leave it to it in here for like an hour or so and see what happens. However, I am starting to feel warm. So we've got the white curtains, I'm going to call them white, on this wall, which I was hoping one of them would spread across the whole window, but it's actually quite a big window. So I ended up having to use the 2 of them. Mostly insulated up that one. Not too concerned about the gap because we are, at least I can still see in here a little bit. And then I've got one of the pink ones over there, which with the blue, I don't actually hate it. You know, I don't actually hate it too much. If you squint, it kind of looks like there's trees on the other side of it. And it doesn't look like the pattern at all. If you squint, you could pretend. So, and then I left that one as well, just so that I can see who's coming and going. I don't like to feel like I completely can't see everything. But it is starting to feel warmer in here already. So I'm gonna leave it to it and see what happens. And then if I come back and the tanks are looking relatively warm, then it's time to head to the old fish room. Because, well, I need to feed everyone anyway. But also I want to catch my Vandrati Plecos and maybe some live bearers, probably the half beaks. I don't know. I want something else in that tank, but I'm not sure what yet. Could even just be some wild type endlers. Not sure. Just for movement in the top of that tank. But I want to catch my Vandratis out and bring those here. Because I mean, at least I've got a little 50 watt that I can throw in that tank. That's not too much of a problem. And then hopefully I can get the air system sorted as well. The little bits haven't arrived yet, so I still need to make sure everybody is fed and everybody is happy at the old fish room. And yeah, I'm going to start obviously with my own personal fish first, as much as possible. So like probably some of the first fish I'm going to move into these tanks here is going to be more the live bearers and stuff like that. Because they're a little bit more sensitive than Plecos anyway. I don't know, I just find that. I find guppies are more likely to kill over if there's something wrong than like a wild caught Pleco because they're just a little bit tougher. But maybe that's just me. So I'm probably going to start with some smaller fish and things like that first, just to double check everything is all right and my process is going to work. Look at him, there he is. Hi, Steve. Yay. So Steve is swimming around. Often he'll be out and then I will come into the room and he will scarper. But there he is. And then lights as well. I need to work out lights. It is getting warm in here though. And so what you can see me doing here is attaching the garden hose. And I actually used some black hydroponic hose as well, which was a little bit more rigid. But this is literally just normal green garden hose, literally chopped off the end of my hose. And what you do is you connect it all together in a circle so the air can't get out anywhere. So this was almost like a, I suppose like a lasso shape, going up from the air pump down around in a rectangle around the tanks. And you can just get connecty bits off Amazon, they're ever so cheap, and then you just attach it all together. And that is literally what the closed loop for the air is. Alright, so these are called one-way control valves, and this is what I was on about. And essentially how these work is you drill a hole in your hose or your PVC pipe or whatever you're using, and then eventually you can pop one of these in it, and it's got a valve on it, and that will allow air out of that. And then you put your airline hose on there, which then goes attached to the filter, and that's how that works. So when you see people with like these big air systems that go all the way around their fish rooms, that's basically what this is. These are very nifty little things. So what I need to do now is drill lots of holes. This hole was already here in this pipe, so I've just used that one as an example. But I'm basically going to go along probably on the same side of each tank. So it all sort of like matches, go along, pop some holes in, and I've just got to
sort of hobby level drill to do that with, screwdriver drill with a little drill bit on it. And then do the same for the bottom row. And then hopefully that is the air system done for this rack of tanks, hopefully. I haven't done one where it's gone wrong yet, she says famously, but this should be a lot tidier than what I had before, which was loads of spaghetti lines running absolutely everywhere. You just couldn't see it because it was all behind the rack, but yeah, it was a tangle and a half, and this makes it a lot easier for me to add any extra ones, because I can just drill a hole, put one of these in, and attach my airline. So let's see if I can do this. Voila, there we go. So we've got lots of little silver valve thingies drilled into the pipe there, all the way along. There we go. And if you're wondering why I've got an extra one, this is for the tank below, because I didn't want to pop a whole row in, because I kind of want to keep that as storage just for now. If I can help it, a little bit of free space here and there isn't going to hurt anyone. I don't want it to get like the old fish room where I've just crammed in every possible tank absolutely everywhere. They're not quite straight because I'm not very good at drilling on circular hoses. This was actually really difficult. This is irrigation hose, I think, for like greenhouses and things, like hydroponics and sprinkler systems, things like that. So it's like a solid version of your normal garden hose. But I tell you what, this was really difficult to drill into compared to this, which is obviously soft. The only thing with this is it's obviously got 2 layers. So if you don't get through the main layer, the inside layer, when you push these in, they're just kind of like ballooning into a membrane and they won't work. So you do need to make sure that you drill all the way through into them. However, that is looking quite smart actually. So now what I need to do is cut some airline bits to the right lengths to go into each tank. And then what can happen is as I move each filter with each lot of fish, I can just hook that up to the airline bit and that will be ready to go. And I probably need to test it as well and make sure that as soon as I turn that on, all of these connections aren't just going to go and all blow off. So I might need to pop a couple of air stones in here. It's probably a good idea to keep the water moving anyway. But it is warming up in here slowly but surely. I need to check the thermometer, but we had come up by nearly a whole degree. It was nearly 22.8. But I still need just a little bit more temperature in here. But the tanks are warmed up. These ones with the heaters in have warmed up quite nicely. I can just make it out, but I think that tank's about 21 at the moment, so it has come up a little bit. But they're still just on the cool side, the ones without heaters in. So I might need to just leave these in overnight, maybe move them over a little bit so that they can warm the tanks up next door, something like that. But let me go grab some airline hose because I've got quite a lot of it here ready to go. Okay, it's all plugged in. Let's see what happens. Obviously there's no filters or anything on the ends of it other than yet, so... Oh god, here we go. Ooh, here we go. So, I'm going to have to pop noise reduction on, I think. So, air always takes the easiest path. However, aside from this one, which for some reason isn't going, can I get it to go by closing the other ones? I'm wondering if it's because of that. I'll get there to go to. Do I have a little bit of air coming out of that air stone? So it will be going out the top ones. The easiest. There we go. And that one's wobbling away as well. Excellent. So yeah, air always takes the easiest path. So what I had to do to get air come out of that one is turn everything all the way off on the top row because everything was coming out the top row. So what I will need to do is just gently tweak all of these. because the bottom rows are going to need to be more open. I think what I'll do is I'll pop these into pebbles or something so that we've at least got some movement. I don't know how safe that is. I might grab different pebbles, but then at least all of the water will be moving around, and that might help things warm up a little bit faster as well. So what I need to do is basically go around and get everything moving like this, and once I've got it so air is coming out everywhere roughly the same, then I will know that the system has worked. But it seems to have worked. We don't seem to have any leaks, and it's not popping off the seams with everything turned off except 2, so that's a really good start. But this is very difficult doing this one-handed, so I'm just going to quickly pop off camera and sort this out, and then hopefully you can see what I have done. There we go. That's actually really pleasing, having all the bubbles trickling up like that. I'm almost half tempted to drill a bunch more holes and actually have airline going into them like that, but no, I don't need too much distraction in the tanks. Having the filters in each corner will be enough water movement. There'll be bubbles coming out of those anyway, but that does look quite smart. It's just a shame they need filters in the tanks, because actually that looks really smart like that. And don't worry about the water trickling out the back. It's because I've overfilled this top tank, and because they're drilled, because they have holes, which is very annoying, I have water dripping down the back of that one, so the floor is getting a bit wet. However, look, a functioning air system, how exciting. So next up, just to finish off, lights. So I'm going to see if I can get the lighting system on this rack here. It's one spotlight in between the 2 tanks, and then that bottom tank won't have a light on it for a little while I sort the rest of them out. But I think this is going to look quite cool in here with the lights on, and hopefully the room lights off so you can see my vision coming together. There we go. If I do say so myself, I think this looks really cool. I'm really pleased with how this has gone so far. So next up, in the next video, I'm going to be getting some shopfish in the tanks. It's definitely time to start moving everybody over, start moving filters and fish in. And then I've got 3 more racks of tanks that need to go in after that. And a couple of display tanks as well.